It's time to hear stories narrated by a human. What did your crush do that absolutely piqued your interest? Story 1. We were in the process of getting together. She had called over, and we spent an afternoon watching movies and sitting close together. By about 8 in the evening, she was considering staying later, and I was casually encouraging her. She asked if she could take a shower, and I was like, yeah, of course. Glad that the bathroom was clean and tidy, and I have fresh towels. Anyway, about 4 minutes later, she calls me saying she needs help with the shower, and I give her a moment to get a towel around herself and knock on the bathroom door. She opens it completely naked and shows me that she's having trouble with the shower controls. So I'm kinda unsure whether to make the move or start with the controls, so I go with the flow and show her this is hot and cold, this is pressure, this is rainforest, and this is power jets. In the 5 seconds it takes me to do this, she's sat on the toilet, which is kinda a weird thing because I need to be able to make the next move. And she's sitting on the toilet, naked, with the lid up, looking all disinterested. I'm thinking, I've screwed it up, when suddenly, kersplash, and she's taking a dump right in front of me. And then another one. I was just, I'll leave you to it. Oh man, talk about awkward situations. This story is definitely one for the books. I can't blame you for feeling like you didn't know what to do next. All you could do was just leave her to it and hope for the best. But hey, at least you can look back on this experience and laugh about it now, right? Story 2. We went to Disneyland, where I had an annual pass, with my friends and family for an event called Dapper Day, where you dress up in dapper clothing so everything looks very old-timey. I'd done it for years with my friends, and he wanted to come. And my mom and siblings were going for the first time, too. I was really excited, as it was the first time he had ever met my family. Well, we went on one ride with my family and friends, and then he said, "Do you want to go on a ride with just me and you?" I thought we'd come back and spend the rest of the day with them, but as soon as we were out of earshot, he was complaining about my family and how weird it was that they were there, and he wanted to do Disney with just me. But he had known that they were coming, so I was confused. Then we went on one more ride, and he started complaining about how hot it was, how tired he was, and before lunch he wanted to go home. I was super upset, but didn't want him leaving on his own, so I just went with him. But on the way home, I wish I had just let him leave and I could have stayed with all the people I loved. It was the first time in years my sister and my mom had been to Disney, and I didn't know it then, but it was the last time I got to go with my brothers before they grew up, and now they hate me. He was just some dude I dated, not a boyfriend or anything that lasted very long. I'm still so mad at myself for letting him ruin my day. But yeah, it absolutely killed anything I felt for him, and we broke up a few days later. I'm sorry that your day at Disneyland was ruined by that guy. It's really disappointing when someone doesn't appreciate or respect the effort that goes into planning a fun day out with loved ones. Story 3. When I was a teenager, we worked together as lifeguards. I adored him so much until one day he just starts talking about this random woman that he didn't know and wasn't even there that was wearing shorts. He said he was fine until she sat down and had some cellulite on her thighs. And he kept being angry and talking about how she should be doing squats to be more appealing. Like his rant was angry and long, and no one was adding to his conversation. Just silence. After that, I took off my rose-colored glasses and saw that he was, in fact, a huge douchebag. I'm kind of grateful he showed himself that way, because I was really into him until then. Could have been a bad time for my teenage brain. It's definitely a red flag when someone talks negatively about someone else's body like that, especially in such an angry and derogatory way. Good thing you were able to see past your initial crush and recognize that he wasn't someone worth your time. Story 4. He talked about how he and his friends used to abuse farm cats. They talked about one that was buried and then run over. I did a quick 180 and absolutely hated him. Unfortunately, I only heard about the abuse when he was talking to someone else, and it wasn't a recent thing. Think high school. And at that point, he was just a few years into college. I also live in Farmtown, USA, so this really isn't an uncommon thing, and I doubt the cops would do anything. I'm glad to see so many caring people on here, though. Cats don't get as much love in my community as they should. Our three are here living in spoiled royalty, and my dad hates it. Ew, that's definitely serial unaliving territory. Story 5. This was in college. We were acquaintances and had a few classes together. He was cute, funny, and I totally had a crush on him. He asked me out to dinner and a movie. At the restaurant, he ordered the most expensive thing on the menu: apps, drinks, lobster, and even dessert. When the bill came, he said, "You got this, right?" I was so embarrassed, I paid. Then I said I'd skip the movie because I wasn't feeling well, and he asked me to give him $20 for gas and for wasting his time. I didn't, and just left. Ugh. After that, he couldn't seem to understand why I didn't want to go out with him again. It's really not cool when someone expects you to foot the bill for their extravagant meal, especially when you weren't expecting it. And asking for gas money and saying you wasted his time? That's just adding insult to injury. Story 6. Bragged about drinking and driving. He told me that he and his friends have a Nothing Under 100 club, where they drink and then drive on the interstate going 100+ miles per hour and have to send a full-length Snapchat video of the speedometer to each other. 2 of my friends had been unalived by a drunk driver 3 months prior. Story 7. Huge crush on a fellow uni student. I was invited over for what I expected to be a platonic study date, but hey, any time spent is better than just being alone, or so I thought. Got there and found another student from class also. Okay, study group. Turns out her mom and her set us up for a full-press MLM pitch. Video, literature, the works. I stayed a bit, not to be rude, excused myself shortly, and only talked to her in class just in passing from then on. Huge letdown. MLM means multi-level marketing, aka a pyramid scheme. Signing up to both buy and sell something while recruiting others to sell also. You get a % of all your recruit sales also. All the percentages basically flow upward, so the only way to make any significant money is to be high in the tree, towards the top of the pyramid. It's all hogwash, basically. It's always a bummer when someone you like tries to sell you something you're not interested in, especially when it's a pyramid scheme. Good on you for politely excusing yourself and keeping your distance afterwards. Story 8. Dude was the perfect epitome of the term douchebag. He used to be nice to people only to gain their trust and then betray them. He was attractive, though, and a smooth talker as well. We started talking, became friends, and I developed a crush on him. Unfortunately, I never knew then what type of double-headed snake he was. Then on one day, I witnessed him throwing his best friend under the bus just to save his reputation. Completely lost interest, cut ties with him, and he gave no care about it. Only then did I realize how toxic people can be sometimes. English isn't my first language, so when I read "one day I witnessed him throwing his best friend under a bus," my brain didn't immediately register that it was a saying. I thought he actually unalived his friend. Story 9. She offered to drive and pick me up in her car because we had plans to go out to dinner and get to know each other better. I realized after about 20 minutes she was not driving to the restaurant and instead stopped at a gas station to get into someone else's car and buy pharmaceuticals. Basically made me an accessory to a pharmaceuticals deal under false pretenses. Believe it or not, this has sort of happened to me. The guy was driving us in my car and conducted a deal in the back streets of an industrial estate close to where I lived. I was baffled. I had big self-esteem issues, and we had been fooling around, and I just didn't even care about anything he did up till that point. I was so angry he had literally used my car to commit a crime. Story 10. In college, I was crazy about a girl named Megan. She was maybe 2 years younger than me, blonde, life of the party type girl. Took her to dinner and chatted her up about her life. Got to talking about past significant others and realized she had very little experience with meaningful, loving relationships. Romantically, it seemed like she was on autopilot. In fact, the more we talked, the more obvious it became that she wasn't ready to love anyone but herself. Which, good for her. Self-love and self-discovery are kind of big parts of going away to college and growing up. But I realized in that moment that what I wanted versus what she wanted were miles apart. It was a crystallizing moment, and I felt the distance between us widen and watched her shrink away. Never asked her out again, and she never asked why. Either she felt it too, or autopilot just kicked in, or she just wasn't interested. This is well written. I can definitely relate to have the moment crystallize and then immediately feel the separation begin to happen, almost like you're disassociating. Story 11. basically shut me down and made it clear to me that I was being the typical nice guy cliche. This is back when I was about 20. After a couple of days of sulking, I started examining my behavior and realized she was absolutely right. Glad it happened. My ideas of how a relationship should work were entirely twisted at the time. I got my stuff together shortly after, addressed my stupid and entitled behavior, worked on myself mentally and physically, and eventually met an amazing woman who is now my wife. Scary to look back and think how close I got to becoming one of those incel neckbeard types. It's never easy to have someone tell you some hard truths about yourself, but it sounds like they were able to take a step back and realize their behavior. Story 12. Bouncer at a bar I used to go to. I had a mad crush on him. He was beautiful. He was a bit of a tart. Every night, some starry-eyed, equally beautiful woman would leave with him. Being a bit of a tart was not a deal breaker for me. I was too back then, if not as successful as him, as I'm not a super pretty girl. But one night, I guess he left stuff too late. The hot girls were gone, and he informed me that he was willing to take me home that night. No. Nothing less hotter than, "That'll do, pig." Being treated like a sure thing, and of course the answer is gonna be yes, because how would someone like me turn down someone like him? Call me a safe bet? I'm betting I'm not. Story 13. I was 21 and in college. He was a classmate of mine. He seemed so charming and was easy on the eyes. One day, I overheard him talking to his friends about how he doesn't date engineer women because math is for men. Some people might miss the point here. It's not that he said he wouldn't want to date an engineer that bothered me. It's that he said that women aren't meant for math. Story 14. We worked together, and as I got to know him more, I learned he talked badly about everyone. Nurses that are amazing, he'd belittle. Talk about how certain people don't know what they're doing because they asked for an ultrasound IV as they were struggling to get a vein on an H addict. The paramedics were worthless, doctors don't know what they're doing, who he thought was hooking up, and it completely turned me off. He's in his early 40s and into gossip more than my teenage daughter. Whenever you meet someone and they seem great at first, but then you start to realize that they have a really negative and judgmental attitude towards others, that's such a turnoff. Story 15. I had a crush on this girl back in high school. She seemed like a sweet girl. After she rejected me, I let it go, but still was interested in maintaining some sort of friendship. Found out she was actually pretty toxic behind my back. She made fun of me for a lot of things that really didn't matter, like hand motions while talking, and I just lost interest in her entirely, even in a friendship. Story 16. I was giving her a place to sleep when she was feuding with her mother. After weeks of picking up after her, I dared to complain. She had a screaming fit, packed up her stuff, and left. I was glad to be rid of her, until later it got around to me that she was telling people on Facebook that I kicked her out for refusing to give me oral spicy time. There is a lot I can forgive, but that was the first time I had ever had anyone just straight up make stuff up about me. Frick you, eh?
Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 17. We were teenagers. He lived in a different province, and we used to chat on Skype. He wanted me to think he was a badass or something, and would always talk about his pharmaceutical use. He ended up faking an H overdose when we were on chat together. I was hysterically crying and freaking out, thinking I was watching someone passing and was trying to figure out how to call 911 in another province when he snapped out of it and told me he was actually okay. I didn't talk to him that much after that. That guy is a loser. I hope you were able to find support and healing after that traumatic experience. Story 18. Treated me like dirt for being the only female in our paintball team. He said that women belong to kitchen, not battlefield. He didn't say battlefield. We're Polish. He said something that cannot be translated perfectly, so I just captured the idea. The word battlefield is mine. I don't know how to call it in English. Now I know it's a field. Sorry. Battlefield. Story 19. Stole from a homeless person. We were walking together downtown and she saw a bucket of coins in front of a pharmacy. She just scooped it all up and kept walking. Guy comes out as she's 20 feet away or so and yells at her. She keeps moving. I stood there and just gave him a 20 and didn't hang out with her anymore. We were 14 and 15. It was nice of you to give him money. I can't imagine why someone would steal from a homeless person. Story 20. I was a midnight clerk at a truck stop, and a very, very good-looking man came in every night on his run to visit with me. He wore an ankle monitor for probation or parole. I asked about it, and he told me he was falsely accused of kissing his ex-wife's daughter. She was 13. I took his word. He seemed to be a real good guy. About 2 weeks later, we were playing and flirting, and a little girl about 12 years old came in with her dad. He looked that little girl up and down like a pervert. I was instantly sick to my stomach. Story 21. My 18-year-old self thought it would be cute to invite him to a Christmas parade, but this dude had the audacity to ask me why I thought he would ever be interested in someone like me. I wish I could take you all to a Christmas parade. Also, I met my boyfriend just over a year ago, and it has been the most wonderful surprise of my life. Story 22. Girl in car behind him honked when the light turned green. He got out of the car and began screaming and banging on her windshield. That's when I knew he was a psycho, and I needed to get out of that relationship. Took me a destroyed home and 2 restraining orders later, but we've been broken up for 3 years now. Gosh, sorry to hear that, but glad that you've seen the issue and got out of it. Story 23. He picked me up for our first date, and his car was disgusting. Not talking a few trash items. The entire back seat and floorboard were completely covered in piled up trash, even up front. I had to step on empty McDonald's bags, old soda bottles, wrappers, etc. to even get in. And all he said was, "Just move it around with your feet." No sorry or anything. Made me feel like trash too. Like, dang, couldn't even clean up a little? Story 24. She invited me over to her place, not as a date thing, but just to hang out as friends. Her house was absolutely filthy, and the glass of Coke she gave me had a hair in it. She was really cute, had a great personality, and was a genuinely nice person. But as soon as I saw cat poop on the floor near the front door and just dirty everything, my crush disappeared and I left in a hurry. Yeah, there's messy, and then there's this. Story 25. Told me that she didn't like me back anymore. But maybe if I waited long enough, she would like me like that again. She told me that I had gotten more critical lately and I changed. So she wanted me to change back before she would be with me. Story 26. Talked dirt about every woman in his life. Should have seen the red flags earlier. Didn't realize until later that he probably did the same to me. Apparently, having an opinion about anything and speaking for yourself isn't a very ladylike thing to do. Story 27. Being obsessed with weird, crazy conspiracy theories, being over the age of 20 and having naked women posted all over his bedroom wall like a teen, having a ton of corn and pics of naked women saved to his computer, and talking about how he'd love to punch and fight people, normally his friends or people he knew. Story 28. She detested cats and insisted that I give up my furry buddy before she'd move in with me. It wasn't that she was allergic to cats. She issued the ultimatum because, according to her, my cat received too much of my time and attention and she wasn't going to compete. Story 29. His sister actually approached me and let me know that he was once arrested for locking their other pregnant sister in the basement, went on a sea binge while she desperately tried to get out, and went outside to beat their unsuspecting neighbor's van with a golf club. That was a big ol' nope. That sister is a legend for giving you a heads up. Story 30. I'm black, she's black, our crush was mutual. Then she found out that I was once in a relationship with a white woman. She then jumped down a rabbit's hole of my betrayal of the black family and some other nonsense of my trauma of self-hatred. Never been turned off by anything faster than that. Story 31. She asked if things didn't work out if I would mind if she went out with my roommate. I said I couldn't possibly do that to him and left. Quick, we're gonna need an ambulance for this burn. Story 32. Told me he was only being nice to me because he was interested in a friend of mine. I see his Facebook posts now. He is dumber than a box of rocks on a treadmill. I'm not sure why the box of rocks on the treadmill is dumber than the box of rocks not on a treadmill, but I accept the metaphor. Story 33. Light the back vents of the school on fire to impress a mate. Should add that he did this whilst high. Herb is not legal here in Australia yet. Arson does tend to be a deal breaker. Story 34. This was years ago on a first date. Tried to convince me to quit my job and put all my savings into gold bars. Then demanded I let him read my tarot cards to see if we'd be a good fit. Nope. Story 35. She brought a friend to dinner with us, which is okay. I didn't mind. Then they both shoplifted afterward while I was on the other side of the store. Told her I didn't date thieves, and she broke down apologizing. Story 36. Revealed his list of conquests. Not even my brother knows how many women I've slept with. Then he offered to take my virginity in the back of his pickup truck. I passed. Story 37. He tried to discreetly take photos of my feet. Nothing against people who are into that, but the way he was going about it was super creepy. Story 38. She asked me if I was good with kids because she was pregnant with her ex and that she's not good with kids. It was the first date. Story 39. She got blackout drunk at a party and violently pooped her pants. The smell alone completely turned me off of any interest I had. Story 40. Said she was starting up a group for LGBT youth. I asked her why, and then realized I had been barking up the wrong tree. Story 40. She physically shushed me in a group with her finger on my lips while I was singing along with my friends to a cover band. Story 42. Dumped me after 9 months because she wasn't ready for a serious relationship. Got into a relationship the next day and was married within 5 months. Story 43. Overheard her insulting my hobbies, clothes, hairstyle, personality, etc. with her friends. Now, I was never Prince Charming, but me, that hurt. Story 44. Being rude to the waiter and complaining that food is taking too long during dinner rush hour. I worked in the industry for a year. It's not easy when being slammed during rush. Story 45. She talked about how she stalked her ex-boyfriend across multiple state lines. She wasn't a crush, but I just wanted to put this out there. This was a first date, too. Story 46. This was in preschool, but she put relish on her hot dog. Game over. I've since learned to love relish and always wonder what could have been.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.